Mira Hale had seen many strange things in her 15 years as a xenobiologist aboard the Frontier's Edge, but nothing had prepared her for the sight of apex predator cubs practicing intimidation displays in what could only be described as the galaxy's most adorable training session. The observation dome overlooked the biocontainment habitat on Deck 7, where the rescued litter of Crevathan cubs had been housed for the past 3 weeks. The Crevathi were legendary, a species of bipedal predators whose adults stood 9 feet tall, possessed retractable claws that could shred titanium, and had conquered their homeworld's food chain before achieving spaceflight. Their reputation preceded them across 17 sectors: hunters, warriors, survivors of a Class IV death world that made Earth look like a vacation resort. And yet, here were their young. Mira pressed her hand against the transparasteel, watching as 6 cubs, each no larger than a terrier, lined up in what their caretaker drones had identified as a dominance hierarchy exercise. The largest cub, whom Mira had named Renkai after the Crevathi word for first fang, positioned himself at the front. His obsidian scales caught the artificial sunlight, still soft and not yet hardened into the legendary armor his kind would develop. Begin intimidation protocol. The lead cub chittered in their primary language. The translator in Mira's ear rendered it with all the gravitas of a kitten demanding treats. Renkai puffed out his narrow chest, spread his underdeveloped wing flaps, and opened his jaws. What emerged was meant to be the terrifying roar that had sent prey species scattering across the Andromeda spiral for millennia. What Mira heard was a tiny mrah that sounded like a rusty door hinge. The other cubs watched with wide, luminous eyes, golden orbs that would one day strike fear but currently just looked curious and slightly confused. They clearly recognized this was supposed to be impressive. "Again," Renkai commanded, shaking his small head. "We must perfect the ancestral roar." The cubs lined up once more. This time, Renkai really committed. He planted his back legs, dug his claws into the soft substrate of their habitat, threw his head back, and roared with every fiber of his being. Mrah! His eyes drooped mid-roar. His jaws hung open, the sound dying to a whisper, then a wheeze, then, still in his aggressive stance, Renkai toppled sideways like a felled tree and began snoring softly, his little chest rising and falling with perfect contentment. The remaining 5 cubs stared at their fallen leader. Did he just, one began, but the question was never finished. Like dominoes succumbing to an irresistible force, the cubs began dropping. The second largest managed to complete her roar. Mrah, mrah, before curling into a ball. The third cub fell asleep while still standing, swaying gently. Within 30 seconds, all 6 apex predators were unconscious, scattered across their habitat in various poses of attempted ferocity. Tiny roars abandoned mid-threat. Mira couldn't help it. She laughed. The sound echoed through the observation dome, and she immediately covered her mouth, worried she might wake them. But the cubs slept on, oblivious, their predatory instincts no match for the overwhelming power of nap time. Commander Josk, a Varanthi officer whose species had been hunted by adult Crevathi for generations, materialized beside her. His 4 eyes widened at the scene below. "This is impossible," he whispered, his translator barely processing his shock. "Crevathi young are supposed to be training constantly. By this age, they should be capable of taking down prey twice their size. They should be exhausted," Mira said gently. "They're babies, Commander. Their parents were killed in the colony raid. They've been traumatized, relocated, and they're trying so hard to be what they think they should be. But they're still just kids." She watched Renkai twitch in his sleep, his tiny claws flexing against an imaginary enemy. Even in dreams, he was practicing. "The human approaches this with sentiment," Josk observed, though his tone had softened. "This is unusual. Your species understands predation. Earth has its own apex hunters." "We do," Mira agreed. "But we also understand something else. We were prey once too. We evolved alongside predators, and we learned that survival isn't just about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about adaptation, community. And sometimes, it's about knowing when to rest." She pulled up her datapad, showing the biometric readings from the habitat. Look at their stress hormones. They've been dropping steadily since we implemented the new care protocol, the one based on human child-rearing practices. Jask studied the data. Scheduled rest periods, play activities, social bonding exercises. These are not warrior training methods. No, Mira said. They're survival training. Real survival. The kind that means they'll grow up healthy, balanced, and maybe, just maybe, less interested in conquering everything they see. Below them, Renkai rolled onto his back, paws curled against his chest, and yawned enormously in his sleep. Another cub instinctively curled against him for warmth. The Crevathi Council will protest this approach, Jask warned. Let them, Mira said with a smile. By the time these cubs are old enough to return home, they'll be stronger than any generation before them, not because we taught them to be harder, but because we taught them to be whole. She pressed her palm against the transparent steel again, and far below, as if sensing her presence, little Renkai's eyes flickered open for just a moment. He looked up at the observation dome, at the human watching over him, and something in his expression softened. Then he yawned again, another adorable attempt at a roar that came out as "Mrah," and snuggled deeper into his nap pile. Mira made a note in her log. Day 23. Cubs continue integrating rest cycles with training. Renkai shows leadership qualities, but also demonstrates healthy self-regulation. Recommendation: continue current protocols. The galaxy's next generation of apex predators is learning that true strength includes knowing when to rest. She paused, then added one more line. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology. It was our understanding that even predators need someone to tell them it's okay to sleep. In the habitat below, 6 tiny would-be conquerors dreamed of roars they'd one day perfect, but for now, they simply dreamed, safe and content, practicing the art of being young.